we are going to talk about spooling or piping design. I like to think of spooling as other than opening up the AutoCAD as one of the easiest things to do. It's very simple. It should be done once your design is complete. So you can spool in the middle of it. You just need to make sure that you're not, once you spool your pipe. And for those not familiar, spooling is the process of breaking your design into small chunks and printing up those small chunks in a document to send to your fab shop for creation. And in the process, you would number all your pipes. Like size parts or parts of a similar size would have the same part number to make it easier for your fab department to fab everything up in the shop. And it should be done ideally once your design is complete, but in the real world that doesn't always happen. So you can start spooling before your design is complete. You just need to be aware that you shouldn't copy any objects once they are spooled. Once that happens, it becomes difficult to remove that spooling information from your object. So if you need to copy your design, so it's common for companies to copy one floor up to another one. Before you do that, the best thing to do is to create a copy of your drawing, and in that copy delete all of your spools, and then you can start to copy all of your objects. And the reason why we're creating a copy of our drawing is because you don't want to delete your spools in your main drawing, so you create a copy of it, delete all your spools, and then you go ahead and copy your objects. So it uses the fabrication palette, and this is what the fabrication palette would look like for piping spools. And you can access that from the Home tab of the ribbon, and then on the Load Catalog drop-down, you will find the fabrication palette, and you can select it, and it'll bring it up where you will then be able to start to create your spools. One thing to note that your spools are stored in a central location defined in the EastCoast options. So your spools are not by default stored where you're in the same directory as your drawing. Your spools are stored in a central location, and you define that central location in your options dialog. And we'll go through and look at that when we switch over to AutoCAD here in a few minutes. Another thing to notice, if you look up here at the screenshot, there's 4 little pound symbols up there. If your drawing is not part of a project inside of AutoCAD MEP, and by project I mean an AutoCAD MEP project, then you're going to see the 4 little pound symbols as your main folder. But if it is part of a project, what you'll see there instead is the project name. So it will help you sort all your spools. If you're using a project inside of AutoCAD MEP, you'll get your spools sorted in nice project folders automatically inside of the central spool location. So how does the process of creating a spool work? What do you do? Well, the first thing you need to do is define your spools. And once you define your spools, they'll start to show up on the fabrication palette. And once they showed up on the fabrication palette, you can generate those spools. And when you generate a spool, what it does is it goes through and it grabs a template file that is, again, defined in the EastCoast options, and it uses that template file to create the spool. And in that template file, you can put anything you want in there, but what you need by default is at least one viewport. It can be a plan view, it can be an isometric view, but that viewport is where you're going to see your piping that you select for your spool. And then you need at least one schedule table in there, and that schedule table will automatically populate with the property set information that you define for that schedule. So ideally you're going to want to have the spool number and the part number in there, and then the manufacturer information for the pipe fittings, and then your pipe length for pipe. And again, we offer some spool templates in our out-of-the-box setup, but they are completely 100% customizable to anything that you want. Now, I'm not going to spend any time today showing how to customize your AutoCAD templates. We have several different videos on our website that are specifically created to do that. So today we'll just touch on the main topics that you'll need in order to do that. So let's go ahead and switch up into AutoCAD MEP. And I have a very simple piping design here. It's just a main run of pipe with 2 little takeoffs. And if we go in and we go up and open our fabrication palette, and like I said, it's on the Home tab of the ribbon, and the Load Catalog drop-down, we select our fabrication palette, and we see the main folder of our spools. So if you look at it, you'll see the 4-pound symbols that I saw there. And we're seeing that here because this drawing is not currently part of a project. It's just out there alone by itself. So we're going to see the 4-pound symbols. If we go into our options and scroll down to pipe spool options right here, we're going to see where we can set our pipe spool template. And that's the template that's going to be used to create our spool drawings. Now we're also, right under that, we're going to see our pipe spools route path. This is going to be where our spools are saved to. If we go back to our fabrication palette, it's going to save it in this directory structure. So under my documents, you're going to see a folder called pound, 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 pound. Then you're going to see spooling, which is the name of the current drawing that I have. You can see over here it says spooling. And then you're going to see under there your individual folders, which are actually just new categories that I can create. And I can create as many of these as I want in any folder structure that I want. So if I want this one to be under the main, you can see it go under the main. If I want a new category here under this CWS4, you'll see that it'll place it there. And each one of these can be renamed to whatever you want. So maybe I'll name this one to chilled water return. So again, 100% fully customizable. You can delete these if you want. If I delete a folder with a folder in it, it'll go ahead and delete both of them. I'll go ahead and delete this one again. And let's go back into our options and look at our other options that we have there. So we looked at the drawing template, we looked at the route path, then there's 2 other items here that we recommend that you do not touch because they use a lot of programming called Diesel, which is an AutoCAD specific programming language, and it's what is used to create the folder structure and the file naming of the spools, the default folder structure names and the default file names. So unless you are a Diesel expert, we recommend that you do not touch these. And because it is not a basic topic, we are going to go ahead and skip over them for today. The next section here, our spools will act differently depending on what we have checked here. So under the number section, we can choose whether to number our pipes, our pipe fittings, or our welds. I am choosing to number all 3, but it's up to you how you want to do it. Checking number in sequence, so all your pipes will be numbered first, and then your fittings, and then your welds, and so on and so forth. The lock number position inside a block will just make sure that your leaders that call out all your numbers are positioned correctly. Over here on the right side, you can sort the individual pipes, pipe fittings, and welds, and then you can also choose how you want to see them inside of your spool template. So for pipes with the frame, what that really means is you have a leader coming off of each pipe, and then at the end of that leader you're going to have some text that calls out the number of the pipe or the number of the pipe fitting or the number of the weld. And you can choose to put a frame around that number, or you can just choose to have plain old text. So what a lot of people will do is they'll put a frame around, a rectangular frame around their pipe, and maybe they'll have a round frame around their pipe fittings, and then around their welds they'll just have text, no frame at all. So it's up to you. Where do you want to do, how do you want to do that? But the options are there. You can see the different types of frames that are offered by default. So feel free to play with those. So those are all of the options that we have here for spools, for piping spools. So we'll go ahead and get out of there. And as you can see, if I expand my chilled water piping supply, I've gone ahead and created some spools automatically. You can certainly, as I had started to do here before we met, I had started to rename some of these. And again, your company probably has a spool naming policy already in place, so you could name them how you want there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and delete these spools so we can start from scratch, because this was just me playing around with these before we started. So you notice I selected some individually and I was able to delete them. Now I've selected multiple by holding down the control key. So I can select one, hold down the control key, select another, then select another. Standard Windows operating procedure, so to speak. So I'm going to select those and I'm going to delete them all. And I'm just going to come up here, because I don't like the really long name, rename my spool here to CWS. That just gives me a shorter name on my spools. So when creating a spool, all we do is we come over here, we can right click here and come down, and we want to define a spool. And once you start that, you'll see at the command line that says select your pipe objects. So we are creating a single spool now, and we just want to put 3 items in there. Then I hit enter, and that spool is created. I'm going to come up here, right click on here again, and I'm going to define another one. And I'm going to select this remaining pipe takeoff here, and notice I'm going to go ahead and select this pipe we've already selected along with this T. Then I hit enter. You'll see what the software did was it removed this straight piece of pipe here to the left, and it removed this T because it was already part of another spool. So I'm just going to come along here and go ahead and spool the remaining portion of our design, just breaking it up arbitrarily. I'm not a piping professional, so maybe I'm not breaking it up the way that true professionals would, but I'm just selecting some pipe here and breaking it up for a total of 5 spools. So now that I have those defined, they are just defined in this drawing. I haven't actually created those spools yet. So in order to do that, I can come over here. I'm going to select this main folder. I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to go ahead and say generate. And you'll notice down here at the bottom, what it's doing is it's going through and it's creating those drawings based on the drawing template that we had defined in our options. So it's gone through, it's completed, it's created those 5 drawings. Before I open up one of those and start to look at it, what I want to do is I want to show you something that we've created here, and we've done it automatically for you. So if the command line, you go ahead and you type spool, it'll give you a bunch of different options. And the important one that I want to show right now is this legend. So if I select legend and specify a point, what it's done is it's gone through and it's created a display theme that shows the 5 different spools that we've created, and it displays each one of them a different color. So what display themes in AutoCAD do, if you are unfamiliar with them and you have not been present when we spoke about them in the past, is it just displays your objects based on a set of criteria defined in property sets. So right now, if I select this display theme, it is not active. If I come up to the command line, we can see right here, excuse me, on the ribbon, I can see apply this display theme. So I'm going to go ahead and hit apply, then escape. Then you can see the way that the piping is colored up corresponds to my spools over in my spool fabrication palette. So spool 1 is colored yellow, so all items in spool 1 is yellow. All items in spool 2 are green, and then we have a light blue, a dark blue, and a magenta. So that is one way to tell what spool your items are in. I can also come over here to an individual spool, right-click, and go down to select. And what that will do is it will select all the items in that spool. I can do it for another one and hit select, and you can see that it selected all of those items in a spool. And a third way to find out, which items are in which spool is if you select the individual items and go to the Extended Data tab and go to the EC Pipe System Data Property Set, you'll see the spool number and spool ID. Both of these correspond to this pipe being in spool number 1. If you jump down to the Fab Part Numbering Property Set, you can see that this is part number 1 in spool number 1. If we select a different item, this other pipe, you can see that it's still in spool number 1. When we come down here, you can see that it is still part number 1. And what that means is because these two pipes have the same part number, that means that they are identical in length. Let's look at this pipe here. This pipe is in spool 4 and it's part number 3. If I select this pipe and look, it's in spool 4, but it's part number 4. These pipes have different numbers because they are of varying lengths. And finally, the last way to really see what your spool is, what your object is, what spool number and what part number is, you can use your tooltips, and you can customize your tooltips to display that information. If I hover over a pipe, you can see down at the bottom that I've added those to my customizable tooltips where I have the spool number and the part number showing up. If I hover on another one, you can see the different spool number and part number. And finally, if I hover on this fitting, again, you can see its spool number and part number. So there are many different ways to see which spool your objects are in after you've created them. One last way, and it's more permanent, is to create a tag that reads your spool number and your part number, and then you can tag your individual pipes to show that information. And you can do that tagging at any point. You can tag it before you actually create the spools. It won't show anything. It'll show blank numbers, but then once you actually spool the pipe, that property set information will fill in, and then you'll see everything, all the information. So let's go ahead and we can disable this theme, and we'll just go ahead and delete it for now. And you can see that the coloring of our piping went back to its normal color. And let's come on over here to the fabrication palette, and let's select one of these spools, and let's go ahead and open it. So this is spool number 1, and when it opens up for the first time, what it needs to do is extract all the schedule information and fill in your schedules for us. So our out-of-the-box templates, we have 3 different schedules. We have a schedule for the fittings, a schedule for the piping, and a schedule for the welds. Now this particular design is using copper fittings, so we're not going to have any welds in our schedule. But if we go up and look at our schedules, we can see that the default schedules have our quantity, the part number, the manufacturer, the name, material, and then some information concerning to the fitting itself. And then our piping schedule has the individual lengths, and then it also totals up the length. And here you can see that yes, indeed, the lengths of the pipe are identical, which is why they got the same name. Now once in the schedule, we have a secondary command that you can come up here and you can hit the pipe dimension all command, and when you select that, it goes through and it puts dimensions on your pipe. So you can see that it came up here and it hit 8 foot 9 1/4. And if you notice, that's a little bit different than this 8 foot 6 7/8, because the dimension here is actually dimensioning to the center of the fitting lines. So it's going to be a little bit different than your pipe length. And the individual numbers here are just multi-liter, so if you don't like the default location it places them in, then you can go ahead and move them around to anywhere that you want. Now, the one thing I wanted to talk about as far as customizing and creating your own templates is these schedules and getting them to populate automatically. If I select the schedule and come over to the Design tab, there's some certain properties that these have to have in order to work correctly with the spooling in EastCoast. So if you create your own template and you add your schedules to it, you need to select your schedule and come in and tell it that you want it to scan XREFs, you want it to scan your block references, and down here at the bottom you want it to schedule an external drawing. The reason why you need to do this is these objects here are in, if I go inside this viewport, you can see that this object is in model space, but these schedules are in paper space. And the way schedules usually work is that they schedule the items that are in the same space as what they are. Because these are not in the same space, we have to go through some tricks in order to get them to schedule. And to do that, we set it to scan for XREFs, and then our software will automatically come in, and the XREF that this is looking for is actually the same drawing. That allows it to have your schedule in paper space and go into model space and schedule those items. So very important when you are creating your own templates, if you don't start with ours as a base point and you start from scratch and create your own and bring your own templates in, make sure you go back and look at ours and set these up the same way in order to get your schedules to work correctly. And I should also note that you can create as many viewports as you want. So if I wanted to, if I take this viewport and bring it over here, I can copy it and create a secondary one and bring over here. And let's go ahead and put this one in plan view. And I'll just go ahead and center them up a little bit. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. As I said, we have quite a few, couple different webinars in our video section on our website that shows how to create these. So if I come down, once I've divided up my viewports, you can see that my tags here are a little out of place. So I can come up here and I can hit the pipe number tags command. And let's see, let me go ahead and click and get out of this and start this one more time. Pipe number tags command, and it's going to ask you here at the command line which viewport do you want to do. I'm going to hit 1, and because this is not zoomed in very well, and actually because I've modified this after the spool was created, it's not going to work very well. So what we really need to do is go ahead and open up our pipe spool template. So let me go out and grab that. Piping spool template. Let me save this, make a duplicate of it. I'm just going to say piping spool template 2, say save. Let me close out of this. Let me go into my options, and let's come down here for my piping spool template. Let me go ahead and put a 2 in here and just hit OK. Now let's close out of this spool that we just created. Let me go back and open up my spool template, and let's just drag this one over to about right here, and then let's copy it again to about right here, and then change this to a plan view and hit save. And let's close out of it. Now in our main drawing, we can come back in here and we can go ahead and let's do something first here. Let's take this piece of pipe. Let's say it's changed just a little bit and it moved. I can come over here and check my spool and say verify, and we come down and look at the command line. We can see that it completed with errors. See the log for the details. And why there's an error is that that part has been modified. So what we need to do is, let me close out of this. Because that part's been modified, we need to come in here and we can say update or update if modified. Either one work, because in this case we know that we modified it. And then all we want to do is regenerate it. Now when we hit regenerate, it's going to say, hey, this spool already exists. What do you want to do? Do you want to leave the existing one there, or do you want to regenerate your spool? And I certainly want to regenerate it because we created that new spool template. And now if we go in here, if everything worked the way it should have, we open it up, we should have two viewports, and it did not work the way it should have, so I might have done something wrong. And I think what I did wrong was because I updated it and I didn't delete the first spool, it uses the same template. Let me rephrase that. It uses the same drawing and just modifies that drawing. So what I really need to do is come in here and delete this spool. Then come in here, and now that I deleted it, you come over here, you'll look at my tooltip. My spools are not filled in, so it's showing a 0 and a question mark. And if I go ahead and use my spool command and bring up my legend and place it there, you can see that it's missing spool 1. And that's because that spool was just deleted. So you can see that this has no color to it whatsoever. So let's come in here and let's define a new spool. And what I can do is, let me right click on here, go to define. I can select everything, and it's only going to select those items that are not currently part of a spool. We can see that it came down here and it gave us spool number 6. Then I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to say generate. Now hopefully, if everything went right, this should be our new spool. So you can see that you'll probably need to move your numbers around just a little bit in order to get them to look the way you want them, but you can see that it did number in each of them. I can come up and I can go ahead and pipe dimension all, and it goes through and it puts the dimensions on those, and you should be good to go. I can move this around just a little bit and go ahead and redo the pipe number tags, and it'll show up there, then come in here and redo them in this one. And that is, I went a little bit further than I wanted to on customizing your template, but I think you get the idea. And we'll just move that one just a little bit in. So you can set these up any way that you want. You can have as many viewports as you want to get your spools to work how you want them to work. And down here at the bottom I have, I put in a tip, add spools to your sheet sets for easy printing. I'm not going to get into sheet sets today. That's more of just a straight AutoCAD thing. But if you go ahead and if you're familiar with them, you can add all of your spool drawings that you create to a sheet set, and then using the sheet set functionality, you can go ahead and print out all of your spools at once. So I could certainly speak longer on spooling, but this is a back to basics series, so I just wanted to get into the basics of it and enough to get you spooling your design and getting it printed, and start making money on doing things easier.